The Summit League tournament begins this weekend in Sioux Falls, and the Coyote men's and women's basketball teams getting themselves prepared for a run at a Summit League tournament championship. I'm John Thayer as we preview the Summit League tournament coming up in Sioux Falls, joined by Mick Geary. Mick, you've seen the Summit League tournament many times. It is a premier event, not only for the Summit League, but for the city of Sioux Falls.
Absolutely. It's really been something that over the years, if you live in Sioux Falls, you've seen it start out way bigger than a lot of people thought it was going to be, and it's evolved since then. And I think that's the real magic of it, that you've had two tournaments. For sure, the distinctive elements involved in that women's tournament, where it's basically the best women's tournament, conference tournament in the nation. And the men's tournament with when USD joined, and it really got big. And it's a special deal in Sioux Falls. It's a huge part of the sports skyline in the state now.
It's a lot of fun, and certainly people can enjoy it. You don't even have to have a favorite team in the tournament. Just casual basketball fans will enjoy this tournament. The Coyote women, Mick, they're going to open up tournament play on Saturday at 2:30. They played North Dakota State. They've beaten the Bison twice this year, including in the final week of the regular season. It's a matchup that they will be favored in, having won that matchup twice this season.
It's a little bit different approach when you're the favorite or you're one of the favorites, and certainly they're not unfamiliar with that based on how they played in the regular season. It's an opportunity, I think, for them to just keep doing what they've been doing. My goodness, you look at this year and there's only a couple of blips on the screen really where you could tell that they didn't come up with that 85 to 100% effort. They've been very good at avoiding those situations. The lows have never gotten too low with this team.
And obviously they've had a really nice season, and they're hoping they can find themselves playing on Tuesday in the tournament championship. The Coyote men in a different situation. They just won their last game of the regular season to give themselves a chance to be the 6th seed in this tournament. They'll play Purdue-Fort Wayne, who's been a very good team in the Summit League, and the Coyotes split with them this year. They beat them in Vermilion, lost on the road in Fort Wayne, a matchup that for a Sunday night session, I'm really looking forward to.
Absolutely. Fort Wayne, that's a very talented team. But if you're trying to look at it optimistically and you're looking for ways that the Coyotes can win this one, you look at how they played their last 5 games. And I think it's very encouraging overall, big picture. What Todd Lee has done is that they are unquestionably playing their best basketball right now. Obviously, that team is still all in. And just particularly individually, there's a lot of guys who are playing their best basketball too. And I think that's very encouraging for the Todd Lee era here.
Yeah, they're obviously getting healthy, and I think for the Coyote men's team, for the way their season is played out, they're hoping to give the other Summit League teams the boot this year and get to the tournament championship on Tuesday. All right, let's dive into it a little bit more. Let's talk women's basketball. Obviously, they have big wins to their credit. This is a team that's led by, you've got a senior in Allison Arns, you've got Kira Duffy, who's one of the better players in the Summit League, but they have a lot of players that can contribute on this team.
A lot of money players. You look at Chloe Lamb and what a special player she is, in that there's no situation that is too big for her. There's experience there. There's a lot of kids on that team. There's only one senior, but there's a lot of kids on that team who punched the time clock in Summit League games up to this point, played a lot of games like that, but have overall just been able to deliver more often than not in those situations.
I'd argue that a player that really they're going to lean on a little bit is Hannah Sherman, coming off of the bench, who's been tremendous this year. And you look at what she's done in Summit League play, where she has blocked a lot of shots, she gets a lot of steals. I think she has 22 steals in Summit League play, 24 blocks, something along those lines. But where she's going to factor in the most probably is her length and the defense she can play between the blocks.
Really industrious player. And one of the good stories on this team this year is that she contributes like a guard. I mean, she's up and down the court, and she's in the middle of things all the time. And it's a great asset on that team that they have somebody like that who can come off the bench.
All right, let's take a look at the men. You talked about how they've played here the last several games. This is a group that has gotten healthy. Trey Birch-Manning has come back. Obviously, that's been a big factor for this team. But I think a couple of guys, probably one of the more underrated players in the Summit League, Tristan Simpson, has been playing really, really good basketball and scoring it well this year. And then you look at what Cody Kelly has done in Summit League play. He's had a handful of games in double figures. Those two really have benefited, I think, from the return of Trey Birch-Manning.
the guard play has become a strength of that team. And Cody Kelly has really transformed his perimeter game and made some big three-pointers that if we watched him early in the year, you wouldn't have guessed that he was going to be this type of player at the end of the year. And
obviously the growth of Stanley Umude throughout the season has been huge when the Coyotes have had their success, and he's been very, very talented. Mick, let's wrap things up with this. There's been a lot of conversation on the Coyote women's basketball team and whether or not they deserve an at-large berth into the NCAA tournament should they not win the Summit League tournament. And it's an interesting conversation. A team that has won a lot of games. They've won top 25 games. They've been ranked in the top 25. I think all of that plays into that conversation.
Historically, there's not been a Summit League team get an at-large bid. You had to win the tournament. If it's ever going to happen, this would seem to be the year where you have two strong teams, and they both had great seasons, and they've both done everything that they have to do to make a case for being included.
And obviously, when South Dakota was ranked in the top 25 through part of this year, and both South Dakota State and South Dakota receiving votes in the latest AP Top 25 poll, you got to think that that plays into the minds of those decision makers who ultimately decide who get those at-large berths.
You're seeing a pattern there of recognizing what goes on here and goes on in Brookings, and I think that that's a great positive sign that this is going to happen this year.
Well, Mick, it's been fun, good conversation, and hopefully we see the Coyotes, both men and women, playing on Tuesday in the Summit League Tournament Championships. It would be fun to see those teams make a run here in the tournament.
It's a great series of games coming up. I'm looking forward to it.
He's Mick Gary, I'm John Thayer. It's been fun talking Summit League Tournament. It gets underway on Saturday in Sioux Falls. For all of the information on how to follow the Yotes through their run through the Summit League Tournament, go to goyotes.com.